what we're here to do today is to announce a $1 million allotment to, which has been secured by our office, the Office of the Attorney General, from an energy-related legal settlement involving a company called American Electric Power. We actually use a lot of this money to plant trees in Maryland a few years back, and now we've got another $1 million that we're setting aside in the next state budget to fund a public-private partnership program that will build Maryland's first network of fast charge level 3 charging stations for use by owners of electric vehicles, also known as EVs. The fast charge stations will be in each corner of the state, as you see by the map here, and the distances that are between the locations, from Garrett County to Ocean City, from western Maryland to Ocean City to southern Maryland and beyond. And the map represents what is possible if we take this $1 million and leverage it through the with private dollars as proposed in this initiative. We're going to create a statewide EV fast charging infrastructure throughout Maryland, so which will be administered by MEA. This infrastructure will connect the major population centers where most of the EVA current owners live, but we believe by putting the level 3 stations in Maryland, that will be able to make intrastate and interstate travel much easier and quicker. This is an important step, but only a step towards encouraging this important environmentally sound concept of the mainstreaming of electric vehicles in Maryland. At the moment, Maryland ranks very low among states for the percentage of EV users, and that is due in great part we should be harnessing wind energy here today as well. But the reason why we're so far behind the other states in the percentage of EV users is in great part because of the lack of a statewide EV charging infrastructure. We have level 1, we have level 2, but this is sort of a if you build it they will come concept. If we put level 3 charging stations throughout the state of Maryland, we expect that we'll be able to have approximately 20 of them located all over the state. That will encourage more people to use and even buy EV cars in Maryland. Right now, the state has a goal of 60,000 passenger vehicles traveling in Maryland roads by 2020. Today, I believe we have about 1,200 only. The benefits are obvious. The electric cars reduce tailpipe emissions from gasoline-powered cars that clog our roads every day. That's good for the air we breathe, the health of all Marylanders, and for reducing our dependence on foreign oil. It's a step in the right direction in combating climate change and achieving Maryland's long-term air quality goals. Most of our EVs today in Maryland are used for commuting purposes, but what this will do, once we get this in, we'll be able to reduce what they call range anxiety among electric vehicle owners. There's a constant concern that you can only get up to 40 miles at this time, 40 even to 70 miles, but by having these level 3 stations, cars will be able to go farther, up to 100 miles, and also be able to recharge within a half an hour as opposed to having to charge them overnight. And that will make EVs usable not only for the daily commute, but for longer trips. So these charging stations will require 4 to 8 hours. The charging stations on site today require 4 to 8 hours, like this one behind me here. But a level 3 will require only 20 to 30 minutes of time to accomplish basically the same thing and potentially longer distances to be able to travel down the road. So we want to eliminate this by putting in this $1 million grant program. Right now, the last point I'll make is that just up I-95 in Maryland, we have a General Motors plant in Baltimore County that manufactures the electric drive motors for the Chevrolet Spark EV. Yet the Chevy Spark EV is not even available for purchase in Maryland today because the customer base right now simply isn't there. But with these level 3 charging stations, we expect that they will be in the future. At this point, I want to introduce, and I'll replace the sign holding, Jill Sorensen to you. She's an EV owner. I believe this is her car right here. And in addition to being an attorney, she volunteers as an executive director of the Baltimore-Washington Electric Vehicle Initiative, as well as being a member of the Maryland EV Infrastructure Council. Jill?
Thank you, Attorney General.
What about this?
Well, thank you for all kinds of service. I've known to this point in time that we have a great advocate in our Attorney General Gansler, and he goes, as I was preparing to say anyway, above and beyond the call of duty, ready to harness wind energy or whatever else we put to work here. It's true, I'm an advocate and a champion of electric vehicles, and this is an exciting announcement. Today's work comes at a really interesting time, about 5 years to the date that I described as the beneficiary of a meeting of progressive folks like Mr. Gansler here. In particular, on invitation, I got to go to a meeting with the Maryland Department of the Environment, Maryland Energy Administration, MDOT, Public Service Commission, folks who thought maybe it's time for Maryland to talk about electric vehicles. What would we say about them? Well, we haven't been doing too much with them, but there's this lady, Jill Sorensen, who's ready to run her mouth about them. We had a great conversation, and a group of progressive leaders said, you know, there is something that we could do. Let's have a conversation. The group started a dialogue and then did the real work of what progressive folks like Mr. Gansler will do, and that's to start to plan what would that infrastructure look like, what would make sense for Maryland, how could we access resources to do it. And it was really one of the best states positioned to do things like use ERA money for clean transportation. I do drive a Volt. It averages 125 miles to the gallon, and I have something called gas anxiety. I was driving yesterday, I was off charge, and I started to get a little tense. Where's my charge? I'm looking for the juice. There weren't enough charging stations. So what this initiative allows us to do is to minimize or to perhaps pamper folks with this special disability now of gas anxiety by positioning fast charge. We can't always charge up and sit for 4 to 6 hours. So the fast charge will allow us to get east to west, north to south. What the earlier efforts have done is to give us what I call some lifeline, the level 2s. In addition to the fast charging and the earlier and growing infrastructure, we'll see expansion of workplace charging, more charging, because this makes it possible. As I was saying to someone earlier, when you drive an electric vehicle into space like this, you present possibilities for people. When you install charging infrastructure, those folks not inclined to be thinking about electric vehicles will start thinking about them. And when you do those things well, you position businesses like Semiconductors here, a business in Maryland, having started and grown its employee ranks to some 25, like Clinton Electric and EV Power Pros, which has dedicated its work now to electric vehicles. These are real jobs, real economic development. So when we talk about wealth creation for the environment, and we know our Attorney General Gansler is a true champion, it goes beyond the environment to economic opportunity for folks. We, Bevy, happen to be working closely with the utilities. BGE, Constellation Energy, Exelon, Pepco are helping us do things, again, not just for the environment, but also for our kids. At the end of the day, for us, this is really a lot about driving our futures green, driving literally, and then driving green space for our kids, building awareness of, hey, what could be better? So going back to that meeting 5 years ago, what I saw, folks sitting around a table willing to ask this wonderful question, what could be better? Maybe using solar and wind energy, renewables, to power our vehicles. A couple of little statistics and then I'll close. You may want to take some questions and we can go into other detail about EVs, but it's said that only about 20% of the energy from combustion engines is used to move the vehicle in one direction, mostly forward. What happens to the other 80%? It's given off as heat. It's wasted. And if we could start to imagine being better stewards of the blessings, the gifts we're given of energy, fossil fuel or other, but if we can favor some of those alternatives that are cleaner and better for all of us, let's do it. So, Attorney Attorney General Gansler, thank you for your leadership, for being progressive and allowing others to do so much continuing good work.
You want to hold the stage?
Yeah. It won't go away.
Thank you, Jill. You know, as I was sitting there listening to Jill, I was thinking about how when I was a young child, I used to watch the Jetsons and how much we're getting closer and closer to the world in which the Jetsons live by having providing an infrastructure for electric cars here in Maryland. And we are. It's unfortunate that we have been behind at this point because if you think about Maryland, where I-70 95 cross, it's actually literally and figuratively a crossroads where electric cars should be thriving on the East Coast. When you think about electric cars, you think about California and the West, but we should be able to have real infrastructure here in Maryland. This is the first step toward that. Are there any questions, thoughts, comments?
You mentioned the money would go to public-private partnerships. Were there any private partners in mind?
No, what'll happen is there'll be a grant structure set up, run through MEA, the Maryland Environmental Agency, Energy Administration, Maryland Energy Administration, which is actually quasi-governmental, and there'll be 50-50 partnerships set up. These costs, depending on where it is and how it's set up, the charging the level 3 stations can cost something from $50,000 to $100,000 a piece. And so what'll happen, the way we envision at this point, is that there'll be grants available. They'll be matched by the $1 million will be matching private investment as well, so that we can work, so we can actually leverage and try and get up to like 20 of these around the state. I want to thank Aaron Fitzsimmons also for being sort of in charge of this through our state. I set up a position when I first got there as the Attorney General, a special assistant for the environment, and she's been there for the 8 years and involved in this as well. Any other questions? All right. Everyone, go out and get yourself an electric vehicle, and we'll have you charged up in no time. Thanks for being here.